Okay, we were muted there. It is 2 o'clock, so we will start the second to last session of the day. Carlos Perez from the Center for Teaching Excellence is going to talk about building modules and integrating Canvas content. And Armando Sujeto, also from the Center for Teaching Excellence, is going to be our moderator for this session. I know Carlos has a couple of interactive points here. So those of you that are in person will welcome that. And in the chat, feel free to drop your ideas in the chat, and we will share those via the microphones here in the room.
All right. Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, everyone. I know we've made it to 2 o'clock. We're almost there. So now we're going to talk about building modules and integrating Canvas content. So at this point in time, hopefully you've done merging of your sections. You have set up your gradebook. So now you can actually start adding content to Canvas. So that is what we're going to talk about during this section. So we really want to investigate the type of content that we can add to that Canvas module, and how do we develop content that can go within that module. There is different options that we can use. So let's begin by talking about how are you planning to use Canvas in your course. Can I have some volunteers to share out how are you planning to use Canvas? Have some volunteers around the room.
So as far as assessment wise, well, course material, we have each of the modules are set up by different learning modules. And so we have lecture videos and lecture notes that are posted under course material for each of the modules. And then we have assessments for each of those modules. And assessments range from formative assessments of just quizzes to exams to projects.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
Full variety.
Awesome. Thank you. Full use of Canvas. Anyone else? Would you like to share your future plans? How are you planning to use Canvas? Maybe online, CJ? Can we check in Zoom?
Currently, we don't have anything in the Zoom chat. Carlos, I did tell everyone to feel free to post their ideas there, though.
Okay, any plans to use Canvas? All right, maybe we'll get started. What can we do? All right, so creating content in Canvas. So there are so many options for you of what type of content you can create. There is pages you can create. There is course announcements. You can create a calendar. Dr. Johnson talked about this earlier in the session. He talked about making use of Canvas. How can we use Canvas as that single one point that students can access everything? You can create a calendar. Why is this? I was like, so you can create calendar. You can create a calendar that matches your syllabus with students. They can access at any point in time. You can create your formative assessment, summative assessment, create rubrics, discussions, projects. You can create accessible materials for students. You can use third-party tools at the enterprise levels that have been paid by A&M. You can use multimedia formats. So there is a lot of different options that can help you make your course interactive and more accessible at the same time. So we're gonna begin by, in your Canvas, try to find these options within your Canvas. By now, you probably know where all these options are. So try to find the modules option, the discussion, pages, and quizzes. So we'll use 2 minutes. Just locate those buttons. Try to find the modules button to add discussion, add pages, add quizzes. So 2 minutes. All right. So it was not a trick question. This is just to make sure that you can find these options. All right, so modules and content. Earlier today, Dr. Johnson did mention too about the need to organize your content. You just don't want to add all content, one big module. No, we really want you all to organize this content, regardless whether you're teaching in person, if you're teaching online. It is strongly recommended that you organize your content. And the most efficient way to organize this content is using the modules option. So a module is just that sequence of content that will be organized in a very structured way based on either a topic or a skill. So different ways you can organize your module can be by unit, by weeks, by themes, or whatever organizing principle you want to use for your course that makes the most sense and that gives you some structure to your course. That way you're not just having a bunch of content popping for students. So how do you create these modules? The first thing, you should follow 5 steps. First, you want to write those learning outcomes. What do you want students to learn from that specific modules, from those resources that you're creating for students? After you add those learning outcomes, create those assessments. How are you going to measure those learning outcomes that you have applied? Why is this changing? That you have applied for that specific module. How many assessments are you going to create? How many formative assessments? Do you have a summative assessment included in that module? Then you can move on into creating those learning materials that will be useful for students to master not only the learning outcomes, but for them to perform really well in those assessments. Then you want to create the sequence learning materials. How are you, those learning materials you created, how are you going to structure them for students to cover all this information? And finally, once you figure it out what your learning experience will look like, write those instructions for students to follow throughout the module. So let's talk about how do we add that content to a module. So first, what you have to do is to create that actual module. So you create the module by going to the modules, actual module tab, click the add module, name your module, and we're going to talk about the different options you can do. So I am going to show you how this looks like from a course perspective. Can everyone in Zoom see my screen still? Zoom participants, can y'all see my screen? My Canvas screen?
No, Carlos, I'm still seeing the PowerPoint. I'm not seeing your Canvas course.
Okay. Share. How about now?
Yes.
All right. So once you are logged into your Canvas course, you click on the modules link on the course navigation bar. You click that add module and you come up with the name. You want the module to be as this name to be as descriptive as possible so students know what's the content of that module. So you might want to put module 1 and a quick description for that module. So it could be module 1 introduction, module 1 depending on how you decided to organize your course. So for my purposes, I'm just going to go with practice module. I know, not very descriptive. So what you can do at the time of creating this module, you can add a lock until option. So that allows you to decide when do you want to make this module public for your students? Do you want to, I mean, you don't necessarily have to apply this, but it is a good option. So if you want this to be published on Monday, August 21st, you can decide that right away. So if you already know when this module needs to be published by, you can use this option. Another option you can add here, you can add prereqs. Okay, this one is a really tricky option. It's very, very tricky because if students go through this process, you have to make sure that it is possible for students to move on throughout the activities. And I'm going to explain to you in a moment what do I mean by that. So if you want students to complete module 1 before moving on to module 2, they would have to do all the tasks that are required to do. So you have to be careful when you set up those prereqs that they are attainable for students, and that's not going to prevent them from moving on to the next part in the module. It can get very tricky if you don't set up those requirements the right way. So that is the gist of creating a module. Okay. And move on. So many tabs opened. Go. All right. There we go. Okay. So additionally, once you have those modules created, then you can start adding that content to your modules. You can add assignments, you can add quizzes, files, discussions. This is a spot where you will add all these different contents for students. So I am going to exit one more time, go back to my course. New share. So at this point in time, you can actually see your modules. You can actually click the plus sign, and that's where you would add whatever other content you have decided to create. So if you have a list of assignments that you have created, you click assignments, it will show all the assignments you've created. There would be right here. If you feel like creating a new assignment, then you could create assignment and put a name and create a new assignment. Also, what you can do, if you've created quizzes, all the quizzes you've created previously, you'll find them here as well. Any files you want to share with students, or any files that you have within your course, they'll be here as well. Pages, all possible pages you've created, you have access here. Or if you just want to create a new page, that's the way to do it. Discussions, so pretty much everything that you need for a module. This is a place to add it. Any questions so far? Good. All right. So here is another thing that we have to talk about, and it's organizing your modules. Okay. So you want to organize modules in a way that it makes sense for students. Canvas allows you to add headers for within the module. So once you've created your module, you can actually divide down modules by different sections. You can increase indent to make it look better, the content. So it's not just one big list. And I'm going to show you how this looks like. Again, you can create different pathways for students to follow throughout the module. So if you want a student to score an 80 on a quiz before they move on to the next thing in the module, you can actually set that up within the modules. Again, and the idea is to help student navigation. We want students to have the best student experience possible while using Canvas. And they are used to it. I know students are used, they come in from high school, they do have knowledge about learning management systems. So this is not a new concept to them. So let's take a look at all these different settings and how they look like within Canvas. When you share, we're gonna go to the course again. All right, so here's my course. So if I go within any of, I'm gonna use one that has more stuff. So week 2 has content. So what I can do here is the options I was talking about, your prereqs. Again, you can have prerequisites. In this case, I have requirements for students. They have to finish the requirements in that sequential order. Or I can ask students to complete one of these requirements. I can decide what they want to do. So the options that you get for that assignment, you can have students view the item, mark as done, contribute to the page. So those are different actions students can do when you add some of those requirements. However, if you just want them all to do all these requirements, you would click that option as well. So those are different requirements you can add. Now, if you want to, as you can see, if you can see right now, my module, it is all one line. There's really no divisions. It is just all the content shows up in one single line. So if I click edit, whoops, I can actually indent here. Where's my indent? Whoops. Is it not? All right, when you click plus, so we're gonna, right here, you add the indent to whatever you add. So for example, if you are going to add a new quiz and you want it to have space, quiz now, we're not doing quiz, we're doing an assignment, and I'm just gonna name it practice. And I wanted to just indent to create a little bit of division within the module. I would create add item, and you can see how the assignment now moves a little bit to the right. It just creates that extra space. Now, the other thing I can do within the module, I can add a text header and say, for example, practice header. I'm just gonna show this. I don't want it to indent. I'm just gonna use it to divide content. I'm gonna move it up. And you can see now I've created a text header within the module. And underneath that text header, I've included an assignment. So another thing you can do, instead of calling it practice header, I can actually say all my assignments will be underneath this line. So that will be where all the assignments are underneath this text header. I'm going to include all my assignments. Or I can add at the top, we can say discussions will be above here. Go up. Now you have a text header for discussions. I have another text header for assignments. So that's how you can organize content within that specific module. So it's just not a list of all the assignments and all files that you share with students within a module. Questions?
No questions in the chat either at this point. Oh, and as soon as I said that, we got a question in the chat.
So it's not, oh yeah, I changed it up to assignments. Instead of just being practice header, I made it more specific. There it is, discussions, assignments. There we go.
Oh, well, I was actually wanting to know, other than the actual font or the text itself, is there any other way that we can alert the student that this is another component of this particular module?
The other way would be to indent the assignments. So if you increase indent, and I'm going to show you right now, you can see how the assignment moves a little bit to the right. Is there another way, CJ?
I've also seen numbering used, so it's an outline format. I've even seen like a header used with, you can use a text symbol, like a green check mark or something means it needs to be turned in. And a pair of eyes means it needs to be read or something. You can get those from Carlos if you press the Windows button and period, I think it is. If you go into the text header.
Windows.
If you edit one of the text headers.
Mm-hmm.
And in the text header itself, hit the Windows button and period at the same time. And that should bring up, yeah, and you can search, there are emojis you can put in there. So I've actually seen people set up something like that as well with some sort of coding system for things to be read. Now you can't put those in assignments. That causes a major problem if you put them in assignments. They won't go to the grade book, but you can use them for text headers.
Discussion in this matter.
Oh, this is great. Thank you.
Discussion. Let's go module 1 discussion. Go. Okay. Good question. Thank you. All right. Whoops. All right. So this is going to be more like a more than 2-minute check. What we're going to do, so this is your chance to try it out. So you can create a new module and you're going to call that module the practice module. You'll be required to lock the module until 8/31/2023. Feel free to add a page to the practice module. You can name the page practice page in the content. You can add an introduction message, save the page. Then within the module, you can increase the indent of practice page, add a text header with the name content. See if you can get through all these tasks. So let's do 5 minutes or 10 minutes.